Mitt Romney gets back from Europe, and we all get to engage in the favorite indoor sport in August of an election year, which is speculation about who's going to be the vice presidential nominee. And you know, right?
Yeah, right. No, I do not have an answer, and I'm not going to pretend to have an answer. As 'tis the season for Washington's favorite guessing game. Romney's back. We've got a month until the convention. So what else can we ask the candidate? He's not going to.
Well, you have to have a short list,
policy.
though.
Yeah.
Give me your short list.
Right now, I think, the conventional list is Rob Portman, Tim Pawlenty, Bobby Jindal, maybe Paul Ryan. I think Tim Pawlenty is definitely on the short list. He's been vetted before. Everyone in Boston seems to love him and bend over backwards to say nice things.
Romney headquarters.
The Romney headquarters. They bend over backwards to say nice things about him. Paul Ryan, of that four, Paul Ryan seems like he would be the biggest stretch, just because if you are to tap Paul Ryan, you are then embracing all the budget documents that he has trotted out over the last couple of years now. Yeah. If Mitt Romney wants to have a substantive battle with Obama with some very deep policy differences, then maybe you throw your arms around Paul Ryan.
And maybe he does, because this campaign has not been about moving to the center all that much since the nomination, contrary to what everybody thought.
I mean, we haven't really seen a lot of that. I do think there is some risk in wedding yourself so closely to the Ryan budget, but I actually might say that I think Jindal is more of a dark horse pick than Ryan, and it's only just because it's not, other than a very compelling biography and also someone that conservatives love, it's not really clear what he brings to the table. I think that some people actually believe that if you picked Ryan, you would get Wisconsin.
And the other thing with Ryan is, I mean, he is a substantive pick, and you can make an argument that he's going to be on the ticket whether he is or he isn't, just because Romney has already
Well, I mean,
does it matter? Does it really matter who the vice president?
Polls suggest no. I mean, there were some polls done in Michigan and Pennsylvania recently, and no one moved the needle with the singular exception of former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, but I think a lot of people assume that there's no way that's going to happen, because she said she, A, doesn't want to be the pick, and B, Mitt Romney has made this pledge that he will have someone who is strongly pro-life, and she has been supportive of abortion rights.
But if he did pick Paul Ryan, David, Paul Ryan would have filled in all the blanks in the Romney economic plan for him, basically, right? And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but there would be no escaping it.
Right. If it would be a no taxes, austere budget, and Romney would pretty much be locked into the budget that Paul Ryan has put together in the House. I'd be surprised if he did that for that reason. I don't understand how you can win the election by moving to the right. He's already got most of the right-wing Republicans and even the moderate Republicans voting for him.
Go ahead.
Well, and I think that, this campaign is also really careful about talking about things in broad strokes. So they talk about how they like the Ryan plan in terms of broad strokes of their budget. They really do not want to provide the details.
They can't keep that up. But you think
no,
that you don't?
Well, see, this is a different campaign. This is turning into a base mobilization election. There aren't very many undecided people. Everybody has an opinion about Barack Obama, for better or worse. A lot of people in the middle are distracted by the economy and turned off by the tone of the campaign. And so I think it's a little different. You do maybe win this year just by getting your base to turn out. And that's true for both sides. So maybe it's different. Maybe it's a different dynamic in picking.
But on that note, I think that more people in the base probably know Paul Ryan than Bobby Jindal. So if that's your goal.
No, that's my point.
No,
that's my point. Yeah.
To Jerry's point, he would really electrify a group of people who have not necessarily warmed to Mitt Romney, or at least did not warm to him over the course of the primary. So there is a very strong argument to be made. He is a polarizing figure. I think the other thing you need to throw out there is, if Romney has an insecurity at this point, it is probably foreign policy experience. Obviously, he did not have a great trip, and it really kind of exacerbated concerns that had been there for a long time.
But that trip to Europe, I'm a little counter-conventional wisdom on this. You were there. You slogged through a week without sleep, and we appreciate it. And he did have some stumbles, but speaking of energizing the base, he got a lot of pictures that will play well with conservative voters, with evangelical Christians, and with Jewish voters who might be tempted to drift to the Republicans this year.
Absolutely. So there are the things that all of the press sees when they're traveling with him every day, and then there's the things that the viewers see if they're sitting back at home.
Right.
And if you were, a person who is just watching this on TV, for example, you probably heard that Mitt Romney said some not very friendly things.
It's hard to know just how well it will turn out. There are a few things that were disconcerting.
Probably a lot of people saw that, but not nearly as many people who saw this lovely, stately picture of he and Ann waving at the Olympics, and Bob Costas at NBC talking about how Mitt Romney saved the 2002 Winter Games.
Right, that was worth the cost of the trip alone, as was that picture of him standing in front of the old city
Western Wall,
talking about how tough he's going to be on the Iranians.
Right. I think that, I basically think it's not going to matter much at all. But as the campaign goes on, people will forget the gaffes. The pictures are important. And it clearly, I mean, Tom Friedman had a piece in the New York Times and said it was basically about raising money, and it seems to have been successful.
And they did. I mean, they raised about $3 million, and even the people you talk to who say this probably isn't a success to people who care about foreign policy and are watching, then say, but nobody really seems to care about foreign policy in this election anyway.
Do you think Americans are stunned to discover that both parties and candidates raise money overseas?
I think it's one of those things that when you're reminded about, it does cause you pause, but I don't think that it's one of these things that is going to weigh one party down more
from
than
Americans,
the other.
not from foreigners.
Right, but that kind of gets lost in the translation. I think, oh my God, there are foreigners paying to elect our president. I think that's what some people think.
But there did seem to be, I will say
that's
this
not
about
true,
the trip.
but that's what I think people hear sometimes.
I think the subs, I don't think a lot of people were paying attention, so I don't know that it's going to have a long-term lasting impact. But when there are as many stories about the fundraisers that you're doing overseas as there are about the substance of the things that you're saying, then I think that is a problem, and it's one that the Romney camp is going to have to address.
But you wrote right at the beginning, this was really not about foreign policy substance. This was about imagery, looking like a commander-in-chief, and sending signals.
They were never, it was never going to be the kind of trip where they were going out and talking substantively about policy or rolling out new policy. I mean, we saw that. He didn't hold a single press conference. He took 3 questions from the press. But I think one thing on the fundraising side that was disconcerting to people was fundraisers weren't just kept in their little box, at the hotel waiting for the fundraiser. They were showing up at the Western Wall, and they were greeting Romney there. They were given a grand tour. They had all the front row, first couple rows at his speech. So I think that the sort of bleeding over into the rest of his trip kind of made people look twice at it.
That maybe some of that helped Mitt Romney. I think the other guy who might have lent some help to a candidate this week, but I'm not sure if he did or not, was Ben Bernanke of the Fed, right? There was a Fed meeting. Maybe there was going to be some more stimulus. Didn't really come out of the Fed meeting.
No, he didn't do anything. I think Obama probably would have preferred that the Fed had done something now because it might have helped buoy the economy and the markets a little bit when they're weak. But he certainly flashed signs that he's really worried about the economy, and if things don't pick up, it looks like they'll do something in September. Interesting, the European Central Bank sent exactly the same signal. Not yet, but we're on red alert.
The endorsement to do whatever it takes to preserve the euro as a stable currency has been unanimous.
I think that the problem the president has is that there's not much that either Ben Bernanke or the president can do that's going to save the economy now before the election. He's going to be stuck with a disappointing economy because people's mood about the economy is pretty much fixed now, no matter what the numbers are.
Yeah, but if this is an election that's mostly about the economy, it does seem to me that September might be too late to do anything anyway. On the flip side of that, from the Fed's point of view, is if you move in September, we'll all speculate in stories about how this may be seen as an attempt to help the incumbent president, and is that really what the Fed's going to should be about?
I frankly think there's more concern about that outside the Fed than there is inside the
Really?
Fed. I think that they worry a lot about politics, but more about all this assault on their integrity and independence than they do the partisan thing. I think Ben Bernanke will be able to say, after all, he was appointed by a Republican president, although he seems to be identified with Obama now, he'll be able to say, I did it when I was sure that what we did would do good and it was necessary. And he'll get beat up and all, but I don't think that that really emphasizes their timing. I don't think it affects it that much.
Yeah. The economy is clearly going to be talked about, but the one thing I don't think, at least for my part, we were going to be talking about is gay marriage. And here we are talking about gay marriage this week for 2 reasons. Eaten a sandwich at Chick-fil-A lately, and the Democrats decided to actually endorse gay marriage in their platform.
Yeah, no, this is really the issue that's kind of insinuated itself into the campaign. A stray remark by Joe Biden all of a sudden sets off a firestorm that causes the President of the United States to switch his position.
It is important for me to go ahead and affirm that I think same-sex couples should be able to get married.
Yeah, and now we have everyone's favorite, or at least some people's favorite, fried chicken restaurant weighing into the debate with Republicans trying to kind of make it a major cause and the Democrats saying that, all right, we're going to embrace this position.
Because the guy who runs Chick-fil-A has said, we embrace traditional marriage here at my company.
I think we're inviting God's judgment on our nation when we shake our fist at him and say, we know better than you as to what constitutes a marriage.
The issue is, while the dividing line in the presidential race is fairly clear, this has typically been a gray area for congressional candidates and people a little lower down the ballot. But the functional reality that you have right now is that you have a country in which a lot of these conservative districts that had been occupied by Democrats over the last 4 or 6 years, they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
So it's not kind of the cultural divide that Democrats needed to bridge over the last couple of elections, so it's a little bit clearer. Now, you could argue maybe I think there are two things at play. One is that the issue itself is just the demographics have changed, but then the other thing is that is this a good thing for Democrats in these seats?
Or for Republicans? I didn't get the feeling the establishment of either party wants to have a conversation about this very much.
For certain, the Romney campaign does not want to talk about this, to the point where, you know, when it came up earlier this year, you kind of had to really dig and like pry a comment out of them, because they do not want to talk about gay marriage.
They are singular focused on the economy.
They want to talk about the economy. I mean, that's it. They just won't be drawn into these kind of debates.